March 27, 1977. Los Rodeos Airport, Tenerife, Canary Islands. It was supposed to be a routine day. To Boeing 747 jumbo jets KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 were diverted to the small Los Rodeos Airport after a terrorist bombing closed their intended destination, Gran Canaria Airport. Los Rodeos, a regional airport not designed for such large aircraft or heavy traffic, was suddenly overwhelmed. The airport became congested. The single runway was occupied by parked aircraft. The taxiway, normally used for planes to move to and from the runway, was blocked. This meant that departing aircraft had to taxi on the runway itself, then perform a 180-degree turn to line up for takeoff, a highly unusual and risky procedure, especially in poor visibility. And the visibility was abysmal. A thick fog had descended, reducing sight to mere meters. Pilots couldn't see the control tower. The tower couldn't always see the aircraft. There was no ground radar at Los Rodeos to track aircraft positions. Communication relied entirely on radio transmissions, which were often garbled, interrupted, and misunderstood. The pressure was immense. Both flight crews were fatigued. They had been delayed for hours. Passengers were restless. The KLM crew, in particular, faced a critical constraint. Dutch law mandated strict limits on crew duty time. Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, KLM's chief flight instructor and a company icon, was acutely aware that further delays could force him to exceed these limits, requiring him to find replacement crew in Tenerife, a logistical nightmare and a significant embarrassment for the airline and himself personally. This time pressure created a powerful psychological incentive to depart as quickly as possible. The stage was set for disaster: a congested, unfamiliar airport, zero visibility, non-standard taxi procedures, fatigued crews, mounting time pressure, and critically, a breakdown in communication and a series of devastating human errors driven by powerful psychological forces. This wasn't just an accident caused by fog. This was a catastrophic failure of human decision-making, communication, and crew resource management rooted in authority gradient, confirmation bias, cognitive tunneling, and the relentless pressure of time. At 5:06 p.m. local time, KLM Flight 4805 began its takeoff roll without clearance. Pan Am Flight 1736 was still on the runway, obscured by fog, taxiing in the opposite direction. 27 seconds later, the KLM 747 collided with the Pan Am 747 at high speed. The impact was catastrophic. Both aircraft were consumed by a massive fireball. 583 people died, all 248 aboard the KLM flight, and 335 of the 396 aboard the Pan Am flight. It remains the deadliest aviation accident in history. This is the story of how a series of small, psychologically driven errors, compounded by environmental factors and systemic failures, converged in a single, horrifying moment, forever changing aviation safety and revealing the profound fragility of human performance under pressure. To understand the Tenerife disaster, we must examine the powerful role of authority gradient within the KLM cockpit. Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten was not just any pilot. He was KLM's chief flight instructor, a legendary figure within the airline, and the public face of KLM and safety campaigns. His authority and reputation were immense. The iconic captain, Van Zanten's status created a steep authority gradient. His first officer, Klaus Mers, and flight engineer, Willem Schroeder, were highly trained professionals, but they were also psychologically conditioned to defer to Van Zanten's judgment and authority. Challenging the captain, especially one of Van Zanten's stature, would have been psychologically difficult, perhaps even perceived as insubordinate or disrespectful. This dynamic is common in aviation, but it became tragically significant in Tenerife. Time pressure and impatience. The ticking clock added to the psychological pressure. Van Zanten was acutely aware of the duty time limitations. Every minute of delay increased the risk of exceeding those limits, forcing a crew change and a public embarrassment. This time pressure manifested as visible impatience. He was eager to depart. This urgency, while understandable, began to cloud his judgment and create a sense of rushed decision-making. The taxi and the misunderstanding. After finally receiving clearance to taxi, the KLM 747 proceeded down the runway since the taxiway was blocked to the far end, where it would turn around for takeoff. The Pan Am 747 was also taxiing on the same runway, instructed to exit at a specific taxiway to clear the runway for KLM's departure. However, the fog made it difficult for the Pan Am crew to identify the correct exit. They missed the intended exit and continued taxiing down the runway. The critical transmission and confirmation bias. As the KLM 747 completed its 180-degree turn and lined up for takeoff, Van Zanten, without explicitly receiving takeoff clearance from the tower, began to advance the throttles. The tower had only given them ATC clearance route clearance, not takeoff clearance. These are distinct and critical authorizations. The first officer, MERS, radioed, "We are now at takeoff." This phrase was ambiguous. It could mean we are now ready for takeoff awaiting clearance, or we are now taking off already in motion. The tower, not clearly hearing this transmission to radio interference, responded with instructions for the Pan Am aircraft, which partially overlapped with MERS's transmission. Crucially, the tower did not say cleared for takeoff to KLM. However, Van Zanten, operating under intense time pressure and perhaps confirmation bias, hearing what he wanted to hear or expected to hear, interpreted the garbled communications as sufficient. He may have psychologically filled in the gaps, assuming clearance had been implicitly granted. His cognitive tunneling focus narrowed by stress and urgency meant he was fixated on departing, not on meticulously verifying every communication protocol. Hesitant dissent, silenced by authority. The flight engineer, Schroeder, apparently had doubts. He reportedly queried, "Is he not clear, that Pan American?" referring to whether the Pan Am aircraft had cleared the runway. Van Zanten's reported response was a curt "Oh." Yes, dismissing the concern. This was the authority gradient in action. Schroeder's doubt, though valid and potentially life-saving, was overridden by the captain's assertion. The psychological barrier to forcefully challenging Van Zanten, especially in the heat of the moment and given his stature, was too high. The first officer, MERS, also did not forcefully intervene, likely influenced by the same authority dynamic. The KLM 747 continued its takeoff roll, with Van Zanten believing he had clearance, and his crew, despite potential doubts, deferring to his judgment. The authority gradient, combined with time pressure, confirmation bias, and cognitive tunneling, had created a deadly psychological cocktail, blinding the crew to the horrifying reality that the runway was not clear. At 5:06 p.m., the KLM Boeing 747, piloted by Captain Van Zanten, accelerated down the fog-bound runway. In the cockpit, the crew believed they had clearance. The engines roared, the massive aircraft gathered speed. The Pan Am crew's realization? Meanwhile, the Pan Am 747, still taxiing on the same runway, was searching for the exit taxiway in the thick fog. Captain Victor Grubbs, First Officer Robert Bragg, and Flight Engineer George Warnes were navigating cautiously, their visibility severely limited. They heard the tower's communications, but the overlapping transmissions and poor radio quality made it difficult to piece together a clear picture of KLM's intentions. Then, through the fog, they saw it, the landing lights of the KLM 747 hurtling towards them at high speed. The realization was instantaneous and horrifying. The KLM was taking off while they were still on the runway. Captain Grubbs immediately slammed the throttles forward, attempting to turn off the runway and accelerate out of the KLM's path. First Officer Bragg shouted warnings over the radio, "Get off. Get off, get off," but it was too late. The distance was too short. The fog had obscured them until the final, fatal seconds. Van Zanten's belated realization. In the KLM cockpit, as the aircraft gained speed and began to rotate, nose lifting for takeoff, Van Zanten and his crew finally saw the Pan Am 747 emerge from the fog directly in their path. The horrifying truth hit them. The runway was not clear. Van Zanten desperately attempted to pull the aircraft into the air prematurely, trying to clear the Pan Am jet. The KLM 747's nose lifted sharply. For a fraction of a second, it seemed he might just make it, but the aircraft was too heavy, the speed insufficient for a clean liftoff at that steep angle. The impact, the KLM 747's landing gear and lower fuselage struck the top of the Pan Am 747 with devastating force. The impact tore through the Pan Am's fuselage, ripping off the top of the aircraft. The KLM 747, momentarily airborne, then crashed back onto the runway, sliding and disintegrating. Both aircraft erupted into a massive fireball. Jet fuel ignited. The explosion was catastrophic. The fog, which had hidden the aircraft from each other, now became a shroud for a scene of unimaginable carnage. Seconds of terror, a lifetime of consequences. From the moment the Pan Am crew saw the KLM lights to the impact, perhaps only 10 to 15 seconds elapsed. For the passengers and crew on both aircraft, it was a brief, terrifying eternity. For Van Zanten, the realization of his catastrophic error came too late. He and everyone aboard KLM Flight 4805 perished instantly. On the Pan Am aircraft, the impact killed many instantly. The survivors, 61 in total, escaped through breaks in the fuselage as the fire raged. Captain Grubbs, First Officer Bragg, and Flight Engineer Warnes were among the survivors, though severely injured. They had done everything possible in those final seconds, but against the momentum of a fully loaded 747 accelerating for takeoff in zero visibility, their actions, while heroic, could not prevent the inevitable. The collision was not just a physical event. It was the culmination of a series of psychologically driven errors, communication breakdowns, and systemic failures, all compressed into a few horrifying seconds. March 27, 1977, a day that would forever change the course of aviation history. To Boeing 747s, KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 sat on a runway at Los Rodeos Airport in Tenerife, one of Spain's Canary Islands. What happened next remains the deadliest accident in aviation history. So, what went wrong? It was a perfect storm of unfortunate events. A terrorist incident at the main airport had diverted numerous flights, including these two jumbo jets, to the much smaller Tenerife airport. The airport quickly became congested, forcing planes to backtrack on the active runway to get into position for takeoff. Then, a thick fog rolled in, dramatically reducing visibility to just a few hundred meters. The KLM captain, a highly experienced pilot, was eager to depart due to strict duty time regulations. In the fog, and without a clear takeoff clearance from air traffic control, he began his takeoff roll. The Pan Am jet was still on that same runway, slowly taxiing off. Communication was another critical failure. The pilots and the control tower spoke with heavy accents, and crucial messages were blocked by simultaneous radio transmissions, creating a garbled mess. The Pan Am crew radioed that they were still on the runway, but this warning was never clearly heard by the KLM cockpit. Tragically, by the time the KLM crew saw the Pan Am jet through the dense fog, it was too late. The collision was catastrophic, resulting in the loss of 583 lives. It was a wake-up call for the entire industry. The legacy of Tenerife is profound. The disaster led to sweeping changes in aviation safety protocols and communication. Standardized phraseology was implemented worldwide to eliminate misunderstandings between pilots and air traffic controllers. English was firmly established as the international language of aviation. Crew resource management, or CRM, was developed, empowering all crew members to voice concerns and challenge a captain's decisions if they spot a potential danger. This shifted the cockpit culture from a rigid hierarchy to one of teamwork and open communication. The tragic events at Tenerife were not in vain. The lessons learned that day have made air travel exponentially safer for all of us. Every time we fly, we are protected by the safety procedures born from this disaster. Thanks for watching, and if you found this informative, please like and subscribe for more stories from aviation history.